The Moreness Show with hosts Sil and Bina is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello and welcome to the Moreness Show with Sil and Bina, and we are here again. Please pardon me for my a bit of soft sound and a bit stuffy sound because I'm traveling, and these are just perks of traveling. One of them. But this is all good because this is exciting. Even though right now it's a bit awkward, but interesting also. And as Sil always mentioned that as appropriate. And I was
Exactly.
missing,
Yes.
yes, I was missing our last week meeting, and that was
Yeah.
not fun
Yeah.
because I always learn a lot from these interactions. Of course, with Sil, in a more structured format because I'm the luckiest one here because I call myself a privileged one because I have access to him. More often than anyone else right now because and he shared a lot. He shared a lot, like regularly. This is what our usual regular daily talks are. This is how we talk. This is what we
Exactly.
talk about. This is what is fun for us. This is what our me time, us time, whatever you want to call it. We discuss these things. It's nothing which is other than or different than what we share here.
Exactly the
And
same.
this is something kind of impossible for many people. For some people, not many, but I'm just going to be cautious. For some people to actually understand that this is actually some people can be. And this is the point today we are going to talk about that this is possible. This is a reality. This is happening right now. People don't talk nonsense. They don't get involved into time wasting, shallow conversations. At least I can say about myself. I can say about self. I can say about our discussion regularly, daily, 365 days a year. This is what we talk. This is how we talk. This is how we do things. This is how we learn and grow. I guess Sil has something to talk about today.
Both have,
Very
not just
special.
me.
Sorry?
We both have, not just me.
Yes. Oh, yes. And
Yeah.
yeah, but
So,
today is this something I want you to reveal that what we are going to talk about today. I'm just
oh,
setting up a stage for that this is a real thing. Okay. So, Sil, please over to
I was
you,
going to
and
start
I
by
want you to
asking you
discuss.
what Nobelia means to you.
Okay.
But before we go there, let's just give a bit of context, right? The show is the Moreness Show, and we're talking about Moreness and particularly Moreness culture, right? That's the entirety of what we're communicating, sharing, what it's all about. Now,
Yes.
in Moreness culture, we're always looking for that extra, that deeper, and more here is not in quantity, but in depth, in value, in extra, in bonus, in superlative, right? This is what Moreness is, right? Now, when we look at Moreness culture in its entirety, it's all about learning, growth, developing and enhancing awareness, and developing joy, developing character, etc. Right? And all that kind of moreness, very spiritual in a sense too, not in a woo-woo way or in a bogus, phony way. There's a lot of bogus, phony spirituality out there. But developing your spirit, developing your connection to spirit, becoming aware of what exactly spirit is, right? However you define it, spirit, the universe, everything, right? Right. Now, all of this is, well, it's like something's going on with my face, but it's the way that shadow. I thought, oh, what's going on here? Anyway, I interrupt myself. I'm sorry. And so the lighting is strange because this particular time of day, this time of year, the sun is coming in at a weird angle, and it's caused my lighting to be a bit odd. Anyhow, so we're looking for this moreness. And if we take goodness and the pursuit of goodness, the enactment of goodness, the implementation of goodness, and we say, you know what? where's the moreness to this? How do I go even further? How do we go further with moreness?
Hmm. Hmm.
With goodness, Bina?
Yes.
What's the
Okay.
moreness of
Yes.
goodness? I'm asking.
Okay. Yes. Yes. It's a tricky question. Not because that okay.
Not really, but
You are asking.
could be. Could be.
Yes, but to describe this, when you are when you ever in your life, whenever you try to explain something new, a new idea, it is hard to explain because we don't have a profound term, but also it gives a bit of kind of a confusion to some people, especially for those who never experience this moreness, or even when they experience, they never actually acknowledge that. So it is really hard for them to understand and to actually look for that. What is moreness and good? What was the actual word? Moreness of
The
goodness.
moreness of goodness. Yeah, well, the clue's
Okay.
in the show's title, of course.
Yes. Yes. Okay. When we talk about moreness, this is a term you hear regularly. Of course, this is our title of the show also. Moreness is the potency. When we talk about something and we say that, okay, oh, it's a moreness here. Like what you are observing, what you are experiencing, what you know about on surface, obviously, it has more than that. Layered upon layered upon layered. When you are getting some benefit, when you get like, oh yes, I got this idea, I got a new perspective, I got new understanding. Moreness is having more than obvious. You will get potentially a life-changing, life-transformative perspectives in it, even just in a simple idea. This is what moreness is for me. And this is moreness of goodness. This is what Nobelia-Living is. When they have,
That is the key. Now, what is Nobelia in Nobelia-Living?
okay,
How does
okay,
this come into it?
no,
And the new nobility, as I was saying, the title,
okay,
right?
no, yes, Nobelia-Living is I don't like to say that this is the idea. This is the kind of a utopian society IDSL has created, because it is very much possible. It is very practical. It is available to all of us because we all have innate goodness in us. And this is something I was never been able to connect, because in Way of Impeccability, the very first module says that, okay, we all have goodness, innate goodness, and we always geared to connect, keen to connect with that innate goodness. But today, when Sil says about moreness of goodness, then I realize, oh my God, so the Nobelia-Living is about connecting to that innate goodness, but not just only connecting, actually amplifying it, actually magnifying it, actually going into more depth, so then we can create more, all caps more goodness in us and of course in the universe. This is what the concept there of utopian society of Nobelia is all about, of course. I'm saying in very simple and very short way that, oh, it's all about.
Yeah.
Again, there is
But
always more.
let's flesh it out a little bit, right? So
Yes, yes,
if you take goodness and you say, where's the moreness? Let's go a little further. You end up
yes,
with nobleness. Now, I mean, actually being noble, nothing to do with heredity and titles and all of that nonsense, right? Because historic nobility, the class of people, are the very opposite of noble. They took this term and just used it as a manipulation and a complete abuse, right? So they could get away with all their nonsense because, well, they're noble. Well, they're nothing of the sort, right? Throughout history, they were,
yes,
unfortunately, the very opposite of noble. And we need to pay attention to opposites. There's a whole philosophy of opposite, which is part of Moreness-Culture, and which enables us to really look at things. And when you have that philosophy of opposite, you kind of flip things around and then you move sideways from there, and it gives you a fantastic perspective. But real, actually being noble, real true nobleness, this is really when it's bonus goodness. It's goodness that you don't need to do. You do it extra above and beyond, right? The moreness goodness, in other words, is nobleness. right? Been
Hmm. Okay.
now,
I have a question because I'm just taking an opportunity to ask you there. What you need to do according to who? That, oh, this is what I need to do, and this is what I don't need to do. According to which standard, according to who, we actually calculate that, okay, this is now I can go beyond, and this is what Nobelia is.
all right. So the new nobility. We'll get to nobility in a moment. So the new nobility, this idea of being noble, actually in everyday life, it really grabbed me, and I said, you know, what if we were to really take this idea all the way? And so I wrote a whole story around a culture that revolves around being noble, right? And the culture is the new nobility. That's what they call themselves, a whole
Yes.
society. And since it was in the future, they were in a planet that's in the agglomeration. It's like a whole science fiction thing in the future. But really, it's not about being futuristic necessarily. It's just because it's appropriate. What it's the story is really about showing, and Albina was saying earlier on, realistically, how we could live according to our highest aspiration. This is what
So
the
we
new
can say that
nobility is all about.
this was the need to create that utopian society, to
Correct,
actually
correct.
give a demonstration or an
That's
idea
the
to
point.
people that it
Exactly.
exists. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. Because I thought instead of me writing a whole philosophical treatise on this, and just writing it out in usual nonfiction way, which is a little boring maybe, I thought no, I want to show rather than tell. First rule of writing, right? Or at least stories. And that's how I
Mhm.
created the story, because I wanted to demonstrate this in action. And also the main character, Biela, I wanted to show from inside an ideal person's thinking. You see many idealized or superlative characters in literature, but you always see it from the outside. You never know what's going on inside them, right? And I wanted to show what's going on inside such a person, because I wanted it to be more real. Because when you see it from the outside, that might just be somebody's perception. You don't know this person that you think is fantastic. Inside of them, they may be just, I don't know, saying whatever comes and they got no thought to it or whatever. Yeah, it just can be random, or it's not really what it appears to be. So I wanted to demonstrate. And therefore we got this new nobility society that came about. And of course, the planet is called Nobelia. You know, Noble, Nobelia, right? It just sort of seemed like an obvious name. And this is where Nobelia and the new nobility comes from. And now we say, well, what does this whole idea mean to us in reality? Yes, what does it mean in our everyday lives? Of course, being out there in it's an idea, and it's a figurative idea, but that doesn't mean we cannot utilize it, right? This concept, which is Nobelia, what Nobelia stands for, which is why my website's called Nobelia, right? Or our website now, why it's called Nobelia. It's because it's representative of so much, right? So Nobelia and the new nobility are a subsection, a specialization of Moreness culture. Much like, you can say, well, I'm a sportsman, or you can say, well, I'm a professional darts player or pool player, right? You're very
Mhm.
specialized. Now, in the same way, yes, this is where you've got Moreness culture, very overall in general, and you can apply Moreness culture and do whatever you want to do. But with the new nobility, they don't just pursue nobleness, they also pursue learning and growing, and the pursuit of and development and enhancement of awareness. This is their every single daily action and focus. Right? So they
Right.
are super specialized when it comes to this. They're immersed in it, right? This is their entire being. This is what they do, right? That doesn't
Hmm.
mean we can't do that here as well. Vina and I practice this. This make us noble, but we at least make an effort. It's a path that we'd like to be on,
Exactly.
because we not only enjoy learning and growing, right? Vina, it's crucial to us, but this idea of developing the ability to be noble, this is a very profound thing. Now, it's easier said than
Okay.
done, right, Veena?
Exactly. This is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But we will continue after a short commercial
We're
break.
back already? Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yes, and I'm going to ask Sil that, okay, in that utopian society he has created, do we have some examples of like a housewife, how she can be, or he can be a Nobelia living? They can live a Nobelia living, or a businessman, or children, or whatever. So we are going to discuss that. That is it possible?
After the break.
We will
After
discuss.
the break.
See you after the break.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike Zoric, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zoric, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Bina, or I must say, welcome back to the Nobelia Show with Sil and Bina, because today Sil is talking about Nobelia and Nobleness and Nobelia-Living. So we are going to talk about Sil. You were saying, please continue.
Oh, you were asking how does Nobelia-Living, this idea of bringing nobleness into life, how does it apply to a businessman or a housewife? Much the same
Yes.
way as integrity applies, right? Or impeccability, or awareness, appropriateness, all of these concepts. It is something that you simply add as a flavor, as a layer, as a influencing factor to your every action. That's all. It's just a decision, right? It doesn't mean that you stop doing housework or you stop doing your business. No, you just do it with this idea behind it, or this goal, this attitude, this mindset, this way of being and way of living. That's why way of being and way of living are in our dictionaries of power. Very powerful concepts, because to say attitude, mindset's not enough. It's a way of being. Right? And when you adopt being noble and learning and growing and the pursuit of moreness as a way of being, it influences absolutely everything you do, right? How you perceive the world, how you interact with the world, it makes all the difference, right? Because you are now motivated differently, and motivation changes whatever you're doing, right? I mean, let's say you're going about your life and your motivation is to do as little as possible. You end up doing your business and your housework very differently, right, Rena?
Okay, this is interesting because you always give some completely different kind of a perspective on these things. Okay, because when I was thinking about, when you were saying about Nobelia living, I was like, oh yes, these people are profound, and of course they are going to into like, okay, the more idealistic way of living, and of course they are going
Very
to just talk
practical.
about it. I'm going to do more. Okay, this is the point here. I just want to bring your attention here because when you were saying Nobelia, as if I switch my mind to just a normal person who is listening first time, my idea is that, oh, these are like saints. Oh, these people are just not into or
Interesting.
gurus, or
Well,
like,
they,
okay, the
yeah,
rich. They are
yeah,
not
yeah.
into the regular life. They are not into business. They are not into the regular life. They're just all
No,
about
no,
talking good things and living a spiritual life and all that. But you are giving a completely different perspective on it. Interesting.
absolutely. Right. So spirituality to me, and to on Nobelia for the new nobility and in Moreness culture, spirituality is intensely practical.
Hmm.
Otherwise, what's the point? You say, yeah, but practical how? Does it help to pay my bills? Well, yes, it can, and it does. Why? Because it influences everything you do. If you are truly living a spiritual life, you'll be in attunement. And when you're living in attunement, which is the ultimate of spirituality, things are just a lot easier.
So
Whatever
just
you do is then
yeah.
appropriate.
Okay, so just what you are saying, I'm just going to put it in most simple manner that, okay, a teacher, a regular teacher, kindergarten teacher or college professor, or university professor, they can be Nobelia people, and a
Absolutely. Why not?
housewife, and a janitor,
Absolutely.
and
And janitor makes no difference, right? In other
and a
words, if you're
businessman.
doing, absolutely, if you're doing what you're doing and you're doing it with integrity, you're doing it with impeccability, you're doing it as appropriate according to your deep sense of inner ethics and your deeper morality. And you're always learning. Whatever you do, you're always learning and growing. You're learning how to use your character effectively, learning how to be more aware. You're learning how to be more discerning. You're learning how to be diplomatic. You're learning how to be thoughtful, strategic. You're learning to be preemptive, to extrapolate, to be thoughtful, etc., etc., etc. You can
Okay,
do this with anything, any activity. It makes no difference whatsoever, right? And
okay, but
especially
the
in
problem is,
what's that?
but the problem is that mostly the conventional idea of a businessman that they do things for ambition. They have this, okay, yes, I'm
Well,
going
yes,
to,
but
and of
you
course
know,
competition. Housewives, they just want to prove themselves that, oh, I'm going to sacrifice my life, and of course I'm going to do that. This is the conventional, of course not
right,
everyone,
right. Well,
but I'm just sharing. Yes.
yeah. Oh, if we think about it, the businessman is making a living. He's just doing it in a particular way. Business, which is usually involving buying or selling of something in some way or another, right? Now, how is the housewife not engaged in a similar activity? She's not
Hmm.
paid directly, but a typical housewife is taking care of the house while, or a house husband while the partner works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are contributing to the entirety of making a living. Remove them
Hmm.
from that equation, and the other side of the partnership now is going to struggle, right? Because they're going to
Yes.
have to do all the housework. So it makes no difference when you throw it all into the mix. Income is coming from. They're all making a living in one way or another. Okay, a businessman, yes, some of them are looking to have excess wealth. Fine, that's their choice. But to have wealth, by the way, is not as easy as people think. They think, oh, my life will be so easy if I had wealth. Oh, no, 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 no. Why do most lottery winners end up worse off than before they had? Because they end up in debt because they don't know how to deal with their wealth, right? And also, just on a very practical note, you suddenly win the lottery, everybody's your friend when they weren't before, right? What does that mean in reality in your day-to-day life? It means you can't trust anybody anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
Everybody's out to get something from you, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now, unfortunately, even if somebody's genuinely being nice, you're still suspicious. What a horrible way to live. Yeah? So dealing with that is very difficult. And also the strategy of making sure people don't steal your money. This is a whole other awareness. If you haven't had money, you don't know all the things that are involved. And, you have to learn all of this. It's complex and sophisticated. right? And then just owning things and, having security and all this stuff. It's a very, very different lifestyle. It's not as easy as people think. And many people who realize this, and especially if you get fame on top of it, now you've got paparazzi to deal with and stalkers and fans and all of the stuff. You got no privacy, right? No, not as wonderful as you think it might be. Yeah. So much of it is an idea rather than a reality. But my point is, Bina, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're a janitor, you're homeless, you're a businessman, whatever. If you are applying Moreness culture, right, you're going to do whatever you are doing with Moreness. You're going to be applying Way-Of-Impeccability. You're especially going to be making an effort to live in attunement. Now, the idea of a businessman or a politician is usually, well, maybe they cut corners a little bit here, they lack a bit of integrity because they're very ambitious and blah, blah, blah. But if you are participating in pursuing Moreness culture as your way of living, you aren't going to act without integrity. You're going to do however you're going to do your business on whatever scale, whatever level. It's going to be done with impeccability and integrity. And it's going to be done in attunement. That makes all the difference. When you do things in attunement, you are substituting your decision making with the decision making from outside of you, right? From the universe, from spirit, from deity, from your subconscious, however you want to call it, doesn't matter. You're going with what's appropriate according to everything around you, right? And you decide according to that. Now, in actual business, attunement's already there, which is very interesting that you mentioned businessmen being. Not on the scale that it is in Moreness culture or Nobelia, of course, but to a very large extent, more so than most people's lives. Because if you want to run a successful business, you not have to be in attunement with one societal fashion, trends, yes. You have to be in attunement with the economy. You may have this great business product, but look at right now, right, with the tariffs. You've got a fantastic product that you want to make, but it's relying on imported goods. Oh, well, okay, everything is now got this 134, 140% tax on it. Well, all my parts for my wonderful thing, or my, it's twice the price. Well, there goes my great invention. See what I mean by attunement, though? So let me just finish the point quickly. So in other words, in order to run a business successfully, you have to be connected to society at large, right? All the law, economy, all of it, right? Fashion, everything. Attunement, right?
Okay. So again, just to get like pull up one liner from you, that Nobelia-Living is not inhibiting anyone to live a
No,
normal life. They
no,
are not.
no,
They are not just
no.
going to sit on Himalaya for 40
Right.
years and do nothing. And they
Yes.
actually, in opposite, they are going to be productive and vital part of society.
Absolutely.
They're going to
Absolutely.
build a society.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, as appropriate, as needed. Again,
Yes.
if you're going to be doing things that aren't really necessary, and you're just pursuing like a vanity project, for instance, okay, art may be considered vanity, but art is a huge big deal. So it all depends, right? There's no right or wrong to it. All depends on attunement. If the universe is pushing you into doing something, right, a force of circumstance, and let's say the universe pushes you into doing something that makes no sense whatsoever on any level. I've been in such positions, right? The universe has its own agenda, and you can't always tell how whatever you're doing is going to be making a difference in the future. Right? And I've done things which made no sense whatsoever, but later it turned out to be the most fantastic thing ever. Right? And I understood this about attunement. And I got to tell you, it takes some courage and doing and trust and daring and gumption to be able to do things which you cannot see the sense of, but you're doing them because of attunement. Right? It's not easy, but it is profound. And if you do your business, your life, whatever you do, you always know that you're doing the right thing. Not right according to me, but right according to the greater, bigger, overall, longer term, larger context. That's fantastic. That is an incredible way to live.
Yes, I use specific terms like, examples, like a businessman and a housewife, because although we have this idea that businessmen are all about their own things and of course, like they want to earn money and all that, and accumulating wealth, which is of course not false. It is part of the deal, but they are responsible for the connectivity of a larger group of people. I'm doing my job, my connection is limited. But if I'm doing a business with impeccability, with Nobelia-Living, with the nobleness, then I'm actually influencing without having this intent to influence people. I
Exactly.
am influencing the
Exactly.
society to have more goodness in life. And same
Yes.
applies to housewives, male, female, both. If they are taking care of these things, they are actually taking care of the productivity and, of course, the impeccability of the people who are actually getting benefits of their work. Like they are taking care
Yes.
of their daily chores and everything to provide them comfort and, of course, peace of mind so they can produce more impeccability and nobility in the society. And this is why
Tina.
we do take for granted this type of idea that a housewife is doing. Housewives, male, female, both, are actually real contributors. Housewife of a CEO is doing impeccability, is actually living a Nobelia living. They are influencing thousands of people who are employees and, of course, connecting with their
If
spouse.
they are doing it
So,
that way,
yes,
yes, yes, yes,
exactly.
yes. Now
Yes, you
tell
were
me,
saying.
Bina, regardless of whether people
Yes.
are living according to Moreness culture or way of impeccability or Nobelia living, etc. Regardless, before all of these concepts, right? Just everyday ordinary people. Who is not influential?
Oh, wow. No one.
Exactly. All right. We always
No
pick
one.
on the poor janitors, right? The lowly supposed janitor. But it's not what they do, but what they are. How many times haven't you seen this, right? In terms of people's when they talk about their past history or whatever, coming up and they mention somebody that influenced them or affected them, and it was somebody who really had their act together, and they were a modest person. They acted with integrity and honor, and they were the janitor.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. Yes.
See, what I
Yes.
mean is,
Yes.
it's not your job that determines your influence. It's who you are. Furthermore,
Exactly.
let's say you the janitor and you this wastrel and just like really a mess up and everybody walks past you say, oh, thank heavens that's not me. Uh, you're still influencing things. You're providing an example of down and out in the worst possible, and you're saying, well, don't be like that. See, every single person is influential. Every
Yes,
single.
some are on bigger scale and some are in a limited scale. This is what we are talking
It
about, and we
makes
will
no
continue.
difference. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
We will
yeah,
continue after a
exactly.
couple of minutes.
All right, come so
See you
quickly.
again.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
More precise. Welcome to the Nobelia-Living. This is how I feel that, okay, this is what we have. Okay, it's not about me being noble. I'm just saying about Nobelia-Living. Yes, to be, okay, disclaimer here, that Nobelia-Living, we are trying to practice, exercise this Nobelia-Living. Yes, we can say that this is the most refined characteristics. This is the most refined lifestyle. All human being, and of course all the preachers, all the teachers, all the gurus, and the race and everyone and the spiritual people were actually working for that. But
Yeah.
because some get into the non-practical ideas that, oh, you have to get rid of something, you have to get rid of your normal life. That's why it doesn't work for all of us. It
Nope.
works for some,
Nope.
but not for everyone.
Yeah.
But Nobelia-Living is not about excluding anyone and in
No.
actually like removing anything, but actually making things noble in their existence right there.
Right.
Not
But it's
removing
also,
anything.
right, and Bina, it's also about your own personal predilections. Right?
Exactly.
For some, their predilections are not necessarily to learn and grow. They just want to do whatever and chill and relax and enjoy it. So that's not fun for them to learn and grow, to explore the
Yes.
boundaries of their awareness. But this is for those for whom this is a joy and a delight.
Yes.
That's the Nobelia culture, right? Where you are pursuing this because this is really what works for you, what matters to you, what's important to you. You know, other people that want to go and do sports or engineering or art or whatever, doesn't matter, right? And that's why there's the whole agglomeration. And Nobelia-Living is a part of it. Yes, the new nobility are very instrumental in setting up the entire agglomeration. It's a very involved and complex history. But nonetheless, the greater society is set up in such a way to enable you, the individual, to pursue whatever it is that you wish to do. Yeah? Whether it's doing nothing or pursuing whatever activity, makes no difference. Right? It's really geared towards that. It's a very different society. You know, our society is geared to you being productive, work. But this comes from a feudal culture where really, as a peasant, you know, essentially you're just a voluntary slave and that's it,
Yes.
you know. So the culture is saying work, 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 work. This is the highest good. This is the, well, you're working for somebody else's benefit, right? But in the agglomeration, you have a lot of technology and a lot of stuff is automated and, you know, things work for you instead of working instead of you. And they changed all of this, right? So there's, you know, when you take all the wealth and you simply start handing it out and then you spin it faster, you know, living even in a, you know, in a today's world to be just kind of basically wealthy, right? It's not an
Yes.
issue. It's very easily come by, right? It's already
Yes.
there, the wealth. It just needs to be redistributed a little bit better, right? It's a disproportionate distribution. And it doesn't mean that there aren't wealthy people in the agglomeration. Yes, there are, you know, ridiculously wealthy people. But the motivation in that culture, it's not so, yeah, because, yeah, it's such an obsession to be wealthy. There, it's like, okay, you know, the only reason you're going to really do it is because, well, I don't know, attunement, or I don't know, you've got some weird idea in your head, but really you end up working because they have a system that the more you make, the more you get taxed. So, you know, if you're really, really super wealthy, you end up working for everybody else. So fine, go ahead, you know, Mr. Super Wealthy Multi-Billionaire, you're working for me. All right, great stuff. Thank you very much. Because, you know, they'll, you know, at some point when you start making billions, you'll make like a penny profit on every million or every billion that you make. It becomes ludicrously, you know, just
Exactly.
because it's a sliding scale. So, okay, make more. You want to make an extra penny profit and the rest of that billion goes to everybody else. Fine by me. I don't mind, you know. So it just, you have to change the system a little bit. It doesn't take much. All it takes is, that's the magic of the Nobelia system. It was set up by those who aren't part of the superiority culture. Yeah, they weren't obsessed with insecurity, which is what our culture is. Superiority paradigm, it's an insecurity paradigm. Right? So they're not obsessed with that. They have a different logic to set up different systems, and that makes it where you can pursue what is right. Yeah?
Okay, I have a question, because then you were mentioning about someone making money, and of course, like, yeah, if you want to make money for this thing, is it like something not so cool about making money in Nobelia living? Because the way
No,
you were
not at all.
saying that, oh yes,
Not
of
at
course,
all.
okay,
No. It's just in terms of the trade-off, right? So in the agglomeration, or well, on Nobelia, money is a whole different deal there. It's a little complicated to explain there. I mean, it's just part of the way the system was set up and the way it came about. But in the agglomeration in general, no activity is any better or any worse than any other. Now,
yes,
way the whole story came about, it started off with an actual
yes,
corporation, the New Nobility Corporation. And they became the
yes,
wealthiest corporation because they followed ethics and integrity and sensibility, and people liked working there. They wanted to work there. They wanted to be a part of it. So motivation was never an issue. Anyhow, so now because they had all of this wealth, they started to use it very effectively, right? So they become a force in the entire culture, and they end up going out. They start on Earth and they go out into the stars, and they set up everything over there. Well, a lot happens, doesn't quite happen so automatically, but the intent was to set it up. Eventually, they come together. Anyway, so much happening. It's a story with multiple layers and influences. I couldn't even begin to tell it in an hour. Even give you an idea of it. Anyway, my point is that because the new nobility is such a powerful factor there, and they the default diplomatic corps between all the different worlds, so they have a massive influence, and they set up the political structures and all this. They also
actually, this
run
is
public. Sorry, Bina, one quick point. Then you say what you say. Hold the point, please. They also run public service announcements, adverts, right? PSAs. And in these PSAs, they continually promote and educate and foster it and make it part of culture, that no activity is better or worse than any other. In other words, they promote this idea that when it comes to effort reward, it's a circle. No one, no single body, anybody can tell you how much effort is worth the reward. This is an entirely individual decision. Right, so you asked, is making money a bad? No, but a negative thing? No, not at all. It just because making money has artificial limitations to it, right? The more you make, the less you earn. It becomes sort of like, well, it's a bit of a pointless activity, right? But then again, somebody might say, well, they just enjoy doing it. It doesn't matter to them. They just have fun of it, like art. Right? See, so there's no better or worse. So no, not a negative to it at all.
okay. This
That's
is
your
very
thing,
important to
okay?
mention that.
Right?
Yes,
Correct.
this is very important to mention that very clearly
Yeah.
in bold letters, that it's not about anything like this. That, oh yes, it is better or worse, because this is completely against the grain of Nobelia-Living. And
Exactly.
I was just using my interaction with Sil as a kind of a projection or an outcome of Nobelia-Living. Again, it's a disclaimer that okay, we are not, at least I'm not claiming myself to be noble, because I'm okay. It's a long way to go there, because I need to learn a lot before that. But it is attainable. This is possible to
Oh,
be that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Otherwise, because I don't want to have a false ego of like a spiritual idea to be humble and saying that oh yes, I'm not this and that. It is exactly as toxic, as negative as we get into this superiority paradigm, when we don't accept and acknowledge that there is. And also, if I'm going to say that oh yes, I'm not able to do that, then I'm actually saying, inadvertently, I'm saying and claiming that Nobelia-Living is not practical, which is again a fine art. It
Oh,
is
it's
practical.
absolutely practical. It is intensely
Exactly,
practical.
exactly. this is something we need to pay attention. Nobelia-Living is not here to remove, exclude, or completely throw out any system, but like business, like a family system, like an education system or political system, but just introducing, just infusing impeccability and moreness into existing system.
Yes.
This is the key. This is the key. That's why it is very much possible. That's why it is very much practical. That is why you all of us can be part of it. It is not
So
here
that
to be like, oh, this is
practicality.
limited for only for this. This is only for teachers. This is only for beginners. No,
No, no,
this is
no,
for
for
everyone.
everybody. Right, right. So
Yes,
in the entire system of Moreness culture, right? Keep in mind the
yes,
Nobelia and the nobility, new nobility, that particular culture is a specialization within Moreness culture, right? Now, what is Moreness culture? It is a conception system.
hmm.
Does it make sense, Bina?
Okay,
It's a conception
okay,
system. Like you could say engineering, okay, it's a system, or sports or medicine or art, right? They're all specific systems
yes,
that lead to specific doings. But when you zoom out,
yes,
right, and you apply a conception and you start having conceptions that apply to everything, if you have integrity, the conception of integrity, whether you apply it to art or medicine or engineering or janitoring, doesn't matter, right? Yeah,
yes, yes. Again,
makes no
it's
difference.
about being being part of the system without getting any shoulds of, oh, I need
Exactly.
to be productive, I need to do this and all that. I just
Right.
need to acknowledge that even when I'm doing nothing, when I'm not productive in conventional way, in a regular mundane way, still I am influencing the system. I'm just being impeccable in my being is a big contribution, and I don't need anything else.
Exactly.
Just being
Exactly.
impeccable. As Sil
Exactly.
always mentioned, that you don't need to be positive. All you need to do is don't be negative.
Right.
It's a
Exactly.
transformation.
You don't have
It's a
to be
transformative idea.
positive, but you do have to not be negative. Exactly. So all of
Exactly.
what we're saying, Moreness
Exactly.
culture, nobility, all of it, it's a conception that you add onto as an extra to your everyday doing, whatever that everyday doing is. And when you are living by conception, it makes no difference what you are doing. It's irrelevant.
Yes. Yes.
If
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
learning, if I'm
So
growing, if
coming
I'm
back to,
practicing strategy, if I'm practicing awareness, discernment, all of those conceptions, does it matter what I'm doing?
nope,
Bina? No, doesn't. To come back to, you were going to say to
nope,
come back to?
it doesn't.
Makes no difference.
Okay, so
Exactly.
coming back to the sin, because it's a big, huge idea. This idea of this utopian society you have created, of course, books you have written about this Nobelia-Living and nobleness and, and new nobles. But I'm just trying to summarize it for a new person. That this utopian story about Nobelia-Living is just a manual, like any instructional manual we get from for
Exactly.
any new
Exactly.
device. This is just a manual, but in a more fictional way, that you can actually see that human beings,
Right.
people can be nobles and can live Nobelia living in a more practical way. It's all about practicality. It's not about just
Yeah.
ideas that, oh, you have to
Exactly.
get rid and just get cut off all the system, get off grid. Okay, I'm not criticizing being off grid, but I'm just saying that this Nobelia, this whole transformative idea of Nobelia living is to be part of existing system and transform the system by just being impeccable in your own. You don't need
Exactly.
to influence
Exactly.
anyone.
Exactly.
Just
No,
be
correct.
just be
Correct.
impeccable in your way of being. You can be a teacher or a parent
No,
or just a teenager or even just a music fan or a movie fan or film star, whatever. Just be impeccable, be thorough, and that's it. You are already doing more, not just more and more than enough. You are doing more. just by being impeccable. And this is the real transformative idea of Nobelia living, that it includes everyone in their own specific way
Absolutely.
without excluding
Absolutely.
anything from their life. Okay,
Yeah. Now,
so
also the whole point of all of this is to be the change you see. Be it,
yes,
right?
yes,
Everybody wants to change the world
yes.
by being how you would like to see the world to be,
Okay.
right? Now, does this mean everybody must be like me? Not absolutely no, not at all. Right? But the
No,
things that when I'm being who I'm being my own rightness, my own appropriateness, right? That means if you being yours and you different to me, part of Moreness culture is to celebrate difference. Celebrate, not tolerate, not indulge, not just acknowledge difference. No, but to celebrate. Once you learn to celebrate difference, then you live in a society, in a system, in a world where everybody can be doing their thing and you celebrate, right? Of course, you have respect and you don't go do your thing at the expense of somebody else, right? That's just a duh. This is part of Moreness culture, right? The due respect, respect for everything in general, this is part of Moreness culture. So you do your things, but not at the expense of others, right? It's very powerful.
yes, yes. You mentioned about giving due respect. This
Yeah,
idea of the
that's part of
emphasis on, of
Way-Of-Impeccability.
course, is on due, because you're not going
Yeah,
exaggerating things that, oh yes, okay, yes, you are the alpha and omega and all that, because it comes from, it roots from the superiority paradigm. And unfortunately, we have this comparative mindset quite strongly built in our system, that we, whenever we see something, we compare it to ourselves. If something is beautiful, which means that, and I need to appreciate or acknowledge that, which means that I am not as beautiful as this thing. This comparison, which has actually, like, really doesn't make any sense, but we do get into this thing. Nobelia living, or of course impeccability, inhibit that you don't need to compare yourself. There is no comparison. We celebrate difference, and this is the key, and this is the real essence of Nobelia living and impeccability. Also about giving due respect without exaggerating, without being phony or false, and without getting into this humble ego, like, oh yes, okay, I'm going to do that. No, just be precise, be accurate, be truthful. Okay, we don't use this term very often, that being truthful and all that. Just being precise, be accurate, and not get into that, oh, because it is coming from some spiritual idea or some spirituality, then it has to be like, oh my God, that the divine thing. No, just give due respect. You don't need to be a slave, unconditional or voluntarily slaves of any nonsense of spirituality. This is what Sil was mentioning. And impeccability, and of course, Moreness culture, and on top of that, Nobelia living is going beyond that nonsense. These people are very much practical, even practical than okay, what we see around us and we live life. They are very practical. They give only due respect. They do things with their intent to goodness, not to praise anyone, not to flatter anyone, not to get into comparative mindset, not because of any ambition, but just for the intent of goodness. And of course, as Sil was mentioning, that most of the time they don't need to do that. It's a gesture going beyond the need. They do things, they do good things, they become a good part of the society or a culture, not because they need to, just because they have that intent to goodness. It's a world, it's a culture, it's a paradigm of going beyond need. It is about want. I want this. I don't need to, but I want this. I want to be more productive. I want to be more impeccable. I want to be live a Nobelia life. This is not about need. I need to be this and all that. Okay, I'm not saying in any derogatory way, but that was the paradigm we were living in, a paradigm of need, where we need to collaborate with each other. We need to be good, so then as a society we can thrive. Nobelia living is now a different layer. You don't need to. but you still do that. Going beyond needs to be good, going beyond needs to be productive, going beyond
Exactly.
needs to all that. This is what
Yes.
Nobelia-Living is.
Yes, going beyond, yes, as a choice, as a deliberate choice, because you want to,
Absolutely. Thank you
not
for giving me
because
this
you
word.
have to. Right? This is
Yes.
very, very important to understand.
Yes.
Nobelia-Living, Moreness culture, it's not a system that says, oh, you must be like this way, which all other systems do. Our system is the best and you have to do this. They try and convert you. No, you do it because you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine too. You celebrate people not wanting to do what you do. Right? And this is where respect comes in. If I truly have respect, I have to respect the fact that you don't respect me.
Oh, yes.
It's your choice. And I
Exactly.
respect that. Yeah? So my respect is not dependent on your respect. Yeah, it's independent.
This is the
And
freedom right here we have. And my
exactly.
happiness,
It's all about freedom.
my joy, my happiness, my contentedness, and my
Yeah.
productivity and everything. My life is not dependent on anything or
No.
anyone.
No.
It is
No.
just
No.
my whole soul, my
No.
thing, my authority. And this is the essence again, and next second thing from Sil today, that it is about being um, an authority, an absolute authority of your life, with absolute
Yes.
power of
Of your own
yourself.
life, not anybody
Exactly.
else.
Yes, yes.
Good place to
Thank you
wrap
so
it up.
much.
Good place to wrap it up. We'll talk more about more of this next. See you next week. Bye bye, everybody.
Oh yes, we will continue with this because Nobelia-Living is such a huge topic, and also a bit again, a bit unusual for newcomers, because it's not there. But
Yeah.
we are going to
Yeah, real
continue
quick, because I think I'm
this.
running out of time here. Next week, I think we'll read the origin story because it will give a real nice insight into Nobelia
Wow. Okay.
and
Okay.
Nobelia-Living. The origin
Okay.
story next
Thank
week.
you. Okay,
Bye
thank you
bye,
so much,
everybody.
everyone,
Bye-bye.
and thank you so much, our wonderful team here, Christian especially. You were helping, and that
Yes.
was good. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. We'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye bye.
Bye for now. They're not showing my hand.
This has been The Moreness Show with Sil and Bina. Tune in
Thank
each
you.
week as they focus on bringing
Oh
joy
my
and
God, I
peace
was
of being to us
struggling to
all.
keep my eyes open.
Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold
I was
Brave
struggling.
TV
I thought you were
network,
talking to
powered
stay
by
awake.
B2 Studios.
At
It was
certain
like,
times. Yeah, it sounded like you were talking to stay awake, which is good, Bean.
yes, yes. Otherwise, I would be sleepy. I was yawning because I have medicine. I had
No,
medicine.
all good. All
Yes.
good.
Thank
All good,
you.
sweet. All good.
No
All
problem.
right,
No
you go
problem.
sleep. You go sleep. You go sleep.